everybody. This is Chris.
And Kathy.
We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to our show through your favorite streaming app. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Petability Podcast.
Check out our ever-growing list of affiliates and sponsors. Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
And be sure to use our promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD22, on checkout to receive your discount from our affiliates. And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Alon Landa, CEO of Miracle Mutts, and I'm a proud sponsor of Petability. We decided to partner with Chris and Kathy because, like them, we want to empower all pet owners who are trying to do the most for their pets. At Miracle Mutts, we specialize in advanced home laser therapy for pets. Laser therapy is a safe and effective treatment for common conditions like arthritis and wounds, and it relieves pain for most conditions caused by inflammation. With Miracle Mutts, pet owners can perform this treatment at home while receiving support from experienced clinicians. If you think your pet would benefit from healing at home, visit medcovet.com, and one of our clinical experts will work with you to determine if home laser therapy is the right fit for you and your pet. Tell them Petability sent you.
I'm very honored to be able to represent the special needs community even more so.
Welcome to Petability. I'm your host, Kathy Simon, certified veterinary technician and certified canine rehabilitation practitioner.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston, licensed physical therapist and small animal physical rehabilitationist.
Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Good afternoon, my friend Kathy. How you doing today?
I am doing all right, Chris. What's going on over there?
Well, I bet I know you're hot.
Oh my God, this heat wave.
Yeah.
It's
So
awful.
we're recording this in mid July, and the entire country of the United States and many parts of the world has been undergoing an incessant, unusual heat wave. And a couple shows ago, we recorded an entire episode focusing on brachycephalic dogs. And one of the dangers with brachycephalic dogs is overheating, amongst other things. And if you haven't listened to that, please go listen to that, because much of it applies to any pet in this kind of heat. So It's worth listening to learn, what it is, the signs to look for, what to do if you do see those signs, etc. So the timing of that show couldn't have been better, right?
I know. I went out with Mac the other day. I have Mac in his stroller because the ground is too hot. He's got his fan in the stroller with a cool mat that goes underneath the pad of the stroller. And I have plug-in fans for the car that I can plug right in and just it blows right on his crate. And when I show up places, people are like, "What is happening?"
You're a crazy dog mom.
I know, but it's weather like this. I am a crazy dog mom.
Well, that's true.
It is weather like this that could kill a dog and faster than you think, because it's so hot. So those brachycephalics are at high risk. All dogs are high risk in this temperature. So be careful out there.
And let's mention that Mac is your mad genius pug. So he is definitely brachycephalic, which doubles his risk. And You told me before we got on the show that he has surgery scheduled soon.
Yeah, he's going to have the surgeon take a look in his mouth and in his nose to see if he needs to have his soft palate trimmed and maybe his nares opened up a little bit. So I'll keep everybody posted on that.
Right. Which will allow him to breathe better, which in turn will allow him to regulate his temperature better. Right. So yes, I'm waiting with bated breath, pun intended, to find out what happens to my friend Mac.
We'll let you know.
All right. What do we got going today for a show, Kathy?
Well, Chris, we have a wonderful guest today. And I'm so excited to talk to this woman because we've kind of been friends for years, but we've never actually met, because her dog, Sully, was an ambassador to the blind dog community, as was Digger, as you know. And so Torie and I have followed each other on social medias for years and years and years, but we haven't actually met. So today we're going to be interviewing Torie Beck, the coordinator of Miracle Mutts Therapy Dog Program through the Marley Mutts Dog Rescue. And Torie is here to talk about their mission today. So let me tell you a little bit about Torie and Miracle Mutts. As I mentioned, Torie has been a strong advocate for blind dogs. and has been a big supporter of the blind dog community, which we appreciate because it really is a community. We really do share all these wins and losses with each other in this community. So it's very supportive. And what she and Sully would do is they would educate the public and children about blind dogs. So Torie would go and read my book, Watching Out for Digger, the children's book I wrote about the adoption of a blind dog and how he was integrated into this loving family. And she would read to these children. It was so cute, actually, to see Sully being so good and so gentle and so sweet, despite being his blindness, being such a good ambassador. And so I've always appreciated Torie's support of Watching Out for Digger, a project that was very near and dear to my heart. And as Sully was nearing his retirement from therapy work, Torie adopted another dog, a little special needs dog, a little bipedal pup named Rue, who's so cute and delicious. You won't be able to control yourself when you see her. And despite missing both of her front limbs, Rue has taken on the work as a novice therapy dog. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but we're going to also focus on Marley's Mutts and Torie's work with Miracle Mutts program. And Rue is a Marley's Mutts alum, and she participates in going into the local communities at the senior centers and hospitals and mental health facilities, libraries, schools, and colleges, where she can educate people about dogs with disabilities, bring smiles and tons of kisses to everybody that she meets. And Rue was the inspiration for Torie's Facebook page, the Bipedal Dog Owners. So we'll put that in our show notes. So if anybody would like to go there, it's a private group. You can click on there and Torie can approve you. But we're going to talk more today about Marley's Mutts and Miracle Mutts missions. So please welcome Torie Beck to the show.
Welcome, Torie. Can't wait to hear more.
Thank you so much for having me. Mentioning to them that this is my first podcast. I do a lot of public speaking in my job, but this was a very exciting opportunity, and I'm very honored to be able to represent the special needs community even more. So it's very exciting to be here.
What do you think it is about, not just you, but us, that draws us so much to animals that have special needs? What is it in you that brings that out? What is it about them maybe that brings that out in you?
Well, I think for me, I can relate to them at a different level. I have my own chronic pain and chronic illness. And so the world sees you as fragile or as less than. And being able to relate with these animals in a way that there's a resiliency that we can learn from them. So as we mentioned with Sully, he came to me in a time in my life where I did have to actually quit working due to my chronic illness. And it was a time that was a really low place in my life. And so when he came to me, he had one cataract at the time, but he had a rapid forming cataract shortly after. So he went blind almost overnight. And we very quickly became each other's, safe place and bonded incredibly deeply. And it was a place where I didn't have to feel judged for my own abilities. And together we really learned how to navigate the world. And so I knew that he would be able to help our community. It was really the Barks and Books program that drew us in. And so, he could do that. He could help people. And then I learned how much training really goes into therapy work. And so gave both of us a purpose together. We all just want to be seen and be valued. Some narrative in the special needs community, whether keeping these animals alive is quote unquote cruel.
Anybody who's ever listened to even one of our shows knows that Chris and I say the same thing that you do. These dogs and cats may be different, but they're no less. Sure, they do require some extra attention, but they are no less than anyone else.
I think that's not uncommon for people to be rescued, if you will, by pets, whether they're able-bodied and, 100% healthy or not. I know I've had a dog with special needs. Kathy has had a couple of blind dogs. And for whatever reason, I feel like that bond is greater. But how you described it, there's a mutual empathy, if you will. Like, you got Sully, Sully got you. And it just, strengthened that bond so much more. But that brings me kind of I'm going to pivot a little bit. So then how did you find Marley's Mutts? Because the story of Zach and Marley was a bit similar in that Marley rescued Zach and kind of saved his life.
Yes, very much.
how did Marley's Mutts come to be? And share that story, please.
So our founder, Zach Skow, he needed a liver transplant, but he wasn't eligible for a liver transplant. It was really his dogs that saved him. He was bedbound at the time, but he had a dog named Marley that would demand for his walk and, to get outside and get fed. And at the time he could just walk to the end of the driveway. And then it became a little bit more and a little bit more. And it very similarly, like Sully, it gave him a motivation to live and an accountability, and his liver did heal itself. So because of that, he said, I'm going to give my life to save these dogs that saved me. And at the time he was living in his dad's home, and it started literally out of his dad's garage, and he would save dogs in Tehachapi, California. We're based in Kern County in Tehachapi area. And it started with flyers, and he would, rescue these dogs, and it grew into the program that it is today, with multiple programs, a massive ranch that we have up in Tehachapi where we're able to put a lot of our large breed dogs and behavioral animals, and be able to have staff members that are able to really focus their time on these programs, which is a blessing, especially in this day and age.
I love his motto of you can't change the past, but you can rescue the future. I think that's a really great and profound statement.
It truly is. And throughout his life has been so focused on rescue, and he's been able to outreach to so many people.
I think one of the unique things about, as I was studying up on Marley's Mutts, is that it really is a mutually beneficial organization. The overarching mission of Marley's Mutts and all the programs that fall under that to impact animals and people. And as we get further into this podcast, I think you'll be able to understand how all these different programs work. And, I know one of the things was that they were talking about on a video from Zach, actually on the website. He's like, yes, it's a rescue, but at best we can adopt out maybe one dog a day. So 300 pets a year. With all the programs that they have now since 2009, they're exponentially impacting thousands of dogs' lives, and thus the people that are caring for them. The website was full of fantastic slogans and things, but it all breeds all creeds. So there's no discrimination, into the type of dog that they'll service. And so far they have adopted out over 5,000 dogs since 2009. So that's huge. I know, Torie, you mentioned at the ranch, and we could talk a little bit more about that, but that you provide behavior modification and things. And so many of these dogs are considered by most standards to be unadoptable, that you pull from other shelters, dogs that are on the short list for euthanasia because maybe they have behavior problems or otherwise. So another unique thing about this rescue of Marley's Mutts is you don't take in strays or owner surrenders. You're really working with other shelters and rescue programs and trying to place these high-risk dogs that are on death row in areas where there is more demand than what you have there in South Central California. I know before we got on the show and started recording that you mentioned that the cup runneth over in terms of, despite all the dogs that you can actually adopt out there, the supply is greater. I mean, that it just keeps filling that cup over before you can empty it again. And I think you mentioned, Torie, that you have 40% euthanasia rate in your area of California.
We are at a 40% euthanasia rate, which is devastating. There's such a misconception that people want to blame the shelters for this, and it's absolutely not a shelter issue. It's a community-wide issue of spay and neuter, and so much of that can be finances and resources. We've worked with a couple great organizations here in town. There's a newer one called Kern Safe, which is saving animals from euthanasia. And it's a bunch of us dog rescues that have come together for the common good, specifically of spay and neuter, because that's the only way we're going to actually be able to put a solution here, because we're not going to rescue our way out of overpopulation. And we really have to be able to focus on working together to be able to solve that. And that's one of Marley's really big focuses for our programs and for our organization, is that it's not going to be one rescue that is going to fix this issue. We really have to band together and be able to help each other in other ways and partner with other people. And one of our phrases is rescuing dogs, rescuing people, because that's so much of what we do, is helping the dogs that have helped us back.
It's so easy and quick to be able to just point the finger at the shelters, but the shelters are doing the best that they can. They are overwhelmed. In some places, especially during COVID, they lost all their volunteers. So they're doing the best they can to tread water. And I think it's a much bigger problem than just, shelters not taking in animals. It's a really big problem across the United States, not just in California. I'm really excited to hear that Zach has taken this on. We need more warriors like you and Zach to take on this issue, because that's how we're going to solve this overpopulation problem, or maybe take a little slice out of our overpopulation problem. And I'm also excited to hear about all these programs that you have underneath or umbrellaed under Marley's Mutts. And I know that you're the coordinator of the Miracle Mutts Canine Assisted Therapy Program. And I would love to hear more about that, Torie, and how you became involved, and tell the audience, what is canine assisted therapy?
So our program is known as the Miracle Mutts Therapy Dog Program. We are the community outreach program of Marley's Mutts. So we have all of the dogs that are in our program are already adopted. So these are people's dogs that are in our community that are interested in doing therapy work. And many of these dogs are dogs that want to give back to the community that saved them. So they do have to go through specific testing, just like any therapy organization. So they have to be good with other dogs, good with people, enjoy the work. That's a really big key part. We can't put dogs into an environment to be pet and loved on if they're not enjoying it. It's not going to benefit anyone. We want them to enjoy the work just as much. They have to have basic obedience and loose leash walking skills. They can't have any resource guarding or jumping up on people. The whole test is about an 18 to 20 item test. So it's pretty involved, but we do find that the dogs that are meant to do this work, it does quite come easily, because it is much more temperament based. There's so much of their job that you can shape, teaching them sit and stay, but you can't shape a temperament. So they really have to have a love for this work. And then these are dogs that go out into our community, into hospitals, they go into senior homes. We work with multiple libraries where they get to read with kids. We work with mental health facilities. We offer mental health resource classes where we're talking about coping skills that we can use with our animals.
Or do you do any work with autism?
We do. We work with a couple special needs programs in the schools, and then we work with a wonderful day center here in town that they love our dogs, and they have a whole wall of the photos from when we come. I actually just had a meeting yesterday with someone to work with domestic violence locations. So being able to work with individuals and victims and survivors. So, and that number is always growing. We recently had a partner with our county health. So that number is always growing of where we're doing, but a lot of their job is going in and making smiles for people.
You can never underestimate the power of the human animal bond when it comes to healing. And it's much like you mentioned before, Torie, about how Sully healed you and you healed him. There's a great power in that.
The reason I asked about autism was I had a former client who did therapy dog work with her very large, over a 100-pound Old English bulldog, Bubba. And he went into a school and worked with kids with different needs, and many of them were nonverbal and so forth. And when Bubba started going into this classroom, one of the young persons said their first words, and everybody in everybody in the program started crying, and it was, again, just the power that these pets have. It's amazing.
How has Ruben received as a novice therapy dog? Have people been have questions, or are you able to educate them? Does she go with her? I know she got a new wheelchair recently. Does she go with her wheelchair to these facilities?
She's always been well received. We've had, some people that will kind of start out and very much did like with Sully too, of, oh, it's so sad. And, we get to educate and say, but you know what? It's not sad to them. It's all that they know, and they thrive. The resiliency that these dogs have they don't see themselves any different than any other dog.
Yeah, I've watched Rue on Instagram, and she does not think she's any different than
No,
anybody
not at
else.
all.
She does not think she's different than anybody else. And before we got on, we were talking about this little dog that Torie and I follow on Instagram. I believe the dog's name is Amira. I'll have to put this in the show notes because if you want just your daily dose of joy, you go there.
She was shot in the head and had either missing limbs or it was injury. And she was actually eligible for prosthetic legs.
Yeah,
She has these bright pink boots that she puts on every day. And she just struts down the sidewalk and down the road like
She
this
does
place is made
not
for her.
think she's different than anybody else, nor should she.
Not at all.
I would love to meet that dog.
They're like her go-go boots.
They're like her
Yes.
go-go boots, and she's just really good at it. But we get to see a lot of joyful interactions, both with Rue on her Instagram and social medias, as well as Amira advocating for these dogs that are bipedal. And I think early on, Chris and I, we interviewed. One of our first interviews was a man named Dominic Scudera, and he had three dogs. Chris, he had three dogs, and each dog only had 2 limbs.
But each of the limbs that were missing were different on each
Yes,
dog.
exactly.
So
exactly.
one dog had only rear limbs, one dog had only front limbs, and one dog had limbs on the same side.
That is
Is
crazy.
that Deuce?
Deuce, yeah. Lucky Deuce, and I can't remember the other ones. The littlest one, I can't remember, but yeah. And he's also been a big advocate for these dogs that are bipedal. So it's great to see.
Some disabilities aren't visible, right?
Right.
And some are very visible. So, for example, Torie, when you said, people are saying, "Oh, Sully needs a haircut," his fur's over his eyes, and you're like, "Well, he doesn't have eyes," They couldn't see that. He was acting normally, and they didn't know his quote handicap. Now, Rue, it's very visible,
Yes.
and I think again creating that normalcy for people that also may have invisible or very visible issues, that they're dealing with and trying to again feel normal without judgment. All of that is great. So both have their place, in terms of advocacy and so forth. One question I had about Rue, was Rue born that way, or was it a trauma, or?
She was actually born that way. She was dumped at our county shelter with 4 other little week and a half old puppies. The whole litter was Peggy, Nemo, Tippy, Rex, and Rue. And so Peggy, she had about 3/4 of an arm and a chicken wing. And a couple of them had like a chicken wing or like a little nub like Rue did. And one had kind of a curved arm and like up to the elbow. So they all kind of had these different congenital development. So Marley's was able to take them in, and I bottle fed 3 of those puppies. And I had no plans on adopting a puppy whatsoever. I was looking to adopt an additional dog for therapy work because at this time Sully was, I think he was about 12 and a half. I mean, I knew I was in trouble with her from the start because she was kind of my favorite. She was the first one.
She wiggled her way into your heart.
Yeah.
You're done, Torie. You're done.
It was just like, oh yeah, she's my little favorite, but I didn't think about in the adoption, form. And then it was 2 weeks later that Sully went into the ER and was diagnosed with diabetes. And at the time he had also heart issues. So he was really at risk that we didn't know if he was going to be able to come home. And she was the one that I pulled out of her little box in the middle of the night to get me through the night. And that's when I knew I was in trouble.
That's when you knew you were done.
Yeah, that's when I was like, oh, okay. But, I really talked myself out of it because for therapy work, you need a very specific temperament. And because this is my job, I do need to have a dog that can go to these events and enjoy the therapy work. And I had really gone back and forth, and she had a very special relationship with Sully. And Sully loved everyone and everything except for puppies. And that was
a lot. Puppies are a lot.
Yeah, it was not a fan of. And so very early on, even when she was still a foster, I would work on boundaries with her. But she was so smart and picked it up very quickly. And so she'd wiggle her whole little body like 3 feet away from him, like, I just want to give you kisses and I just want to love you. But I'm going to be so good and I'm just going to stay right here because I know you don't like me.
I just want to tell you this one thing. I love you.
Exactly. And the more I really observed, she would also really stick by or try to stick by him when his sugars were high. And so I knew there was kind of a special bond, and I knew the more I really tormented, if I was going to adopt her, tormented myself. And we had the opportunity with a local school. They were doing a pep rally, and they asked if we had any puppies that they could bring for the pep rally for games. And we're like, well, we didn't have any puppies and it could be stressful. And, so we kind of turned it over to a Miracle Mutts program, which is, what I do. And I said, well, I do have this one puppy that I could also bring. And it gave us a chance to see how she would do. And so it was over 1,000 high school students and loudspeakers and a whipped cream race and being held and touched on. And she loved every minute of it. And that was the point that I was like, okay, maybe we could actually like do this. And so I did wind up adopting her, and she's done really, really well. Normally for our program, dogs have to be a year old to test and participate. So she has been a long-term novice in our program. So she's not earning towards any kind of certification yet. It's really just giving her more on-the-job skills. And so she's had the privilege to do that since she was about 4.5 months. Granted, it was a much more slower start when she was younger, but now she's very close to being able to officially test to start earning towards her certification. The only thing that's holding her back is a little excited bark at the first 2 minutes when we get to our events.
She's so excited.
She is.
She'll grow out of that. Don't worry.
Yeah, and she loves it, and so it's just, and she builds a relationship with the people that we see, and so it's just that initial excitement of oh my gosh, I remember you, I like you, and then she's totally fine, and she behaves, and she's a professional and can really hold her own with these dogs that have been in our program for many years. So she'll get there. There's no rush. I have new facilities with a local mental health facility here in town, and as we were leaving, there was someone that came in that was in full crisis. And the person that I met with is also a good friend of mine. I said, do you want her in there? And he said, no, let me see. And we did. And we brought her in, and it was a key part in helping this person to calm down. And the bond that she formed with them in such a short time, and I was so proud of her. Because they were a little squeezy on her and some firm hugs, and she just was like, okay, this is what I know what you need in this moment. And to the point that she would lick this individual and she does give kisses, but it was calming or trying to heal. And then at one point she fell asleep in this person's hand. And we were there for an hour and a half with them. And they had mentioned that she's like, when I come back, can I see her again? And, being able to have this animal that helps them calm is just so neat to be able to watch to begin with. And I was reflecting later that night of a situation that happened almost identical with Sully, to the point of how they held them and just being absolutely cried into and licking away the tears. And it felt like one of those moments, there was this parallel connection between the two of them. It's been really neat to see her grow into this job that she's loved.
The innate intuition, I guess, that animals in general have. And, I think you're describing Rue and being so young, but like I said, innate. This can happen at any age. Like you said, their temperament cannot be necessarily changed, right? They're born with a certain type of temperament, but how that manifests over time can be affected. And, I mentioned Bubba being so big and, could be intimidating to some people, but they're gentle ways. And, again, all breeds, all creeds. They can do their work and not even, subliminally, not even be official, right? As work in terms of a therapy dog or what have you, but still affect so many people with every interaction.
Maybe she's a young dog with an old soul.
It's very much her personality. She likes some toys, but she'd rather just lounge in soft blankets and be inside and be on a comfy bed and be pampered. She's very much like an old soul and and a diva.
All wrapped into one. Yeah.
Yes, very much. She is a princess, that's for sure.
Hey, I kind of want to go back. You mentioned that she just got her wheelchair. And can you describe that? Because I'm sure a lot of people may not be familiar with carts or wheels or for dogs, period. But again, she's missing her front legs. So what does this look like? How do you put her in it? How does she navigate? Can you describe that, Torie?
Most of the time when people think of dogs that need wheelchairs, they're thinking of back leg dogs. And so front wheelchairs, there's a couple manufacturers that do make them, but it's not nearly as common. We actually reached out to our community after a news story, and they helped us with a fundraiser. And it was astonishing because it was in a matter of hours that they raised the money for it. Because of that, we were able to go with a wheelchair that's custom 3D printed. So the organization's called 3D Pets. And the whole process is really fascinating. We worked with one of their partners in LA, which is called 2 Hands 4 Paws. And so we went in and they basically put her in a little sock to cast her body and used fiberglass taping to make a full casting. And then that was sent over to New Jersey, where they were able to actually 3D print her wheelchair. And then that was sent back to California, where we could do a fitting. And she did really great for her first fitting. I wasn't sure how she was going to do because it's very different body positioning, especially since she kind of defaults to hopping vertically. But she did a really good job with it. And so we've been working on slowly building her up. We've only had it for, I think like we're coming up on 3 weeks now. So it's still pretty new, but she's been doing a really awesome job with it. And we're working on a couple different training activities to kind of help her excitement for it, because she'll definitely work for treats. But we've actually found that people have been a big motivator for her. And so we were able to actually take it to one of the rehabilitation hospitals that we work with last week. And this one primarily is people, it's in like an inpatient. And so they're there after some kind of injury or hospital stay where they're needing to work on occupational or physical therapy before they can go home. And so this facility is awesome. And we've been going there since Sully participated, and it was one of his favorites. And it's a lot of fun because we do activities that are occupational or physical therapy. So it might be playing fetch with a dog, or making a little snuffle mat while they're standing, or it might be walking alongside with them. They get to do kind of activities, and the dogs love it because they get extra treats. But we got to bring her wheelchair, and they've followed her journey since she was very young. So they were so excited. And we had quite a group of OTs and PTs that were around us when we first got there, and it was really neat to be able to see. And we were able to use it with some patients and being able to show how she's learning too. And it was really neat to be able to do that with some of the patients. And there's one point where we had a little race. They had the individual was in a walker, and unfortunately Rue wasn't quite built up with the speed yet, so she didn't quite win, but she said she's going to come back for a rematch. But
good.
There you go.
Yeah, but the whole thing is extremely lightweight. I think it's like less than 2 pounds, and it's made out of flexible 3D printed filament. And so what's neat about the body is it's fully casted to her body. So if she gains a little bit of weight or were to lose a little bit of weight, it has enough flexibility that you're not having to worry about it not fitting. And the whole thing is a little bendable. And so I kind of bend it open and she kind of plops right into it. And it's Velcro shut on the back. And she's able to kind of just go on her own. So,
and it has 3 wheels, right? It's like a little tricycle in the front.
It does. And there's some places that actually don't do the 3rd wheel, and it takes much longer for these dogs to kind of learn because that 3rd wheel prevents them from basically doing a face plant.
That's the tricky part of the front end wheelchairs is the balance, balancing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that 3rd wheel really helps with that. And so you're not having to worry about, they can almost lean into it a little bit more and trusting. So I think she kind of is able to feel like it's more of a part of her body versus in a contraption.
Yeah. I can imagine because she's propelling with her back legs, and then again, kind of imagine a triangle. So you have 2 wheels side by side, and then that 3rd wheel is out at the point. So as she's pushing, it's like Kathy said, it's preventing her from, tipping over front ways and doing a header and so forth. So I think, Kathy, we should consider getting this company on our show to learn more. They're doing more and more with 3D these days in prosthetics, orthotics, bracing. I mean, that's changing, I guess, that world and what we can do. And we haven't had anybody on that really does focuses
3D
on
fittings.
3D printing.
I'm excited really about the possibilities and the potentials for the 3D printing.
We had the good fortune of interviewing Susie Langer, who is the director of the Handicapped Pets Foundation, which is their arm where they donate wheelchairs and things to rescues and other people's private citizens in need. And we interviewed Leslie Grinnell, one of the founders, she and her husband, of Eddie's Wheels. So if you're a listener out there that is interested in learning more about options for wheelchairs for your pets, or maybe organizations that you are volunteering or working with, check out those podcasts as well.
So why don't we switch gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about some of the other programs that is offered by Marley's Mutts? Like, can we talk a little bit about the Pawsitive Change program, the Pawsitive Change prison program?
So our Pawsitive Change program is running in, right now, I think we're in 3 prisons, and it's an 8 to 12 week program where it's actually utilized as one of our biggest foster homes. So we're able to pull dogs that would do really well in the environment. They go in and are paired with inmates that have gone through specific screenings and, that they're going to go through, and it's a rigorous program and it's a commitment. And so they work alongside with our trainers, where they're actually able to train these dogs. And at the end of it, they pass their Canine Good Citizens test, which is also the base of our test for our therapy program. Along with that, it gives these inmates job skills for when they're released. And I believe it's between 5 and 7 that have since been released and are actually working as professional dog trainers in the LA area. And it gives them a purpose, and being able to hear the stories of these men that are going in there. And now we have a women's prison, that the impact that it's had, and that it's given them really positive things to work on in there, and being able to bring diverse areas together to work for that common goal. It's a really, really beautiful program.
I know I heard Zach on video say that now these inmates are going out into the community and giving something back to the community that they formerly took from. That really hit me. And he said that these dogs, they come from all over the world, and they're, from high kill shelters, and considered a lot of times to be unrescuable. And this gives hope not only to the dogs, but like you were saying, hope to those prisoners, learning a skill, but also learning things like generosity, compassion, love. You brought up in the beginning of this discussion today, no judgment, right? I mean, think about the emotional toll of just that label being put in that box of being an inmate, being incarcerated, being in prison. Again, to develop the positive side, the positive change, right, for both the human and dog is just incredible. So that, I think Zach had said, so both may find a path home. Really cool. So there's a couple other things that I wanted to touch on. We mentioned the ranch earlier, and I just want to describe to people, because it sounds like an absolutely beautiful facility. It's on 20 acres, and I think Marley's Mutts is primarily for dogs. It doesn't rehome cats or pocket pets or reptiles, but on the ranch you also have 2 pigs and a goat.
I think the goats may have been adopted out now. We have taken a couple other animals over the years. We've taken in some mama and babies that are able to grow there. Some of our large breed dogs, it's able to give a quarantine space, so we're able to put healthy dogs into our foster homes, which we really found was a big barrier for some people that were wanting to foster, was, the risk of their own animals getting sick. A lot of rescues don't have the privilege to be able to have. Right. And so we're able to really form it as a community space to kind of help with some of that overflow of our shelters.
I think on average, there's about 20 dogs or so there at any given time, I'm sure, plus or minus.
Yeah, I think at some points we can have up to 50. So
Wow.
kind of depends, especially in the winter, since it gets snow up there, they try and keep it a little bit, lighter, especially because there's times where someone has to stay overnight at there because of the snow, getting snowed in.
Yeah, being at that
But
elevation.
yes, but it's gorgeous up there, and it's a beautiful place to be able to volunteer and be able to get out of the city. And you have a gorgeous mountainscape and dogs that you can walk and socialize, and puppy love, and a couple of our wheelie dogs. And it's a really beautiful place to be able to actually have a physical place where people can volunteer, because our other main option for volunteering is our Miracle Mutts program. And so it's kind of nice that people can both utilize that space of, if they don't have an animal, or just want to contribute more to animals that are not yet with a home, and be able to also contribute in a space that people have adopted a pet or have a dog that has a great temperament for therapy work. So you kind of get the benefit of being able to contribute both ways.
But a vast majority of are they volunteers? Are the fosters? Isn't that
Yes.
the lifeblood of the organization, in terms of, like you said, it's kind of overflow or special circumstances by which, the dogs are at the ranch, the rescue ranch, but, always in need of fosters in every community. I think that I think we've changed, right, over the years in terms of having community-based rescue, and many don't have that, like you said, that luxury of having a physical space to go, and it's only foster-based. So that's certainly a way to get involved, not only if you're out in California and in that area, but look into it in your community as well. And there's other ways that people can get involved too. You have the Marley's Movers program, which I was stunned. I mean, we talked early in the show that you're pulling from these high kill shelters and going to places where they're bringing these dogs to places where there's more demand for them to be adopted. And you have air travel, you have vans, and you're always looking for drivers and volunteers and people to assist the movement of these dogs from overpopulated shelters to underpopulated shelters.
So we're partnered with some areas in Canada, and I think Washington and Oregon, and then areas in certain places in the Midwest. But those buses can hold anywhere from, just a couple dogs to, I think it's like up to 15 dogs at a time. But yeah, these drivers, they're awesome, and they drive all the way there and they drive all the way back. And it's being able to get some of these dogs out further, because while we have an incredibly loving community here in Kern County for animals, there just isn't enough homes for the amount of dogs that we have. Some of these also specialized rescues that might take a specific breed or, a special needs, they're able to kind of be able to facilitate moving them from point A to point B. And especially like in Canada, a lot of those dogs get off and they already have homes waiting for them. So it's a really beautiful cause to be able to kind of help, another way to alleviate the overflow of our community. Actually, you had mentioned earlier, that was the reason that I developed the Facebook dog group, which is bipedal dog owners. And it was because when I was all the way back when I was just fostering Rue as a bottle baby, that I couldn't find any resources to really be able to truly talk to someone. Our founder, Zach, has also a 2-legged dog, but she was an injury and she was an adult dog. So, I couldn't reach out of like, these challenges with these bottle babies, and have someone to talk to. So when I officially adopted her, I did actually develop this group, and now we're over 100 members. And it's been neat to be able to help other dogs that are going through this. We actually recently, Marley's had been reached out to, and they connected them with me. Another rescue had a dog that he was shot with a BB gun with both front legs, and they were contemplating what would his recovery look like, or is it better for us to, humanely euthanize, or like out of compassion of what to expect, is this the right choice? And I got to talk with them and really show that like there's a resiliency, that they're going to adapt and they're going to be okay. But, you do need a committed team to be able to do that. And I have since become really good friends with them. And he's actually about Rue's size and about just a little bit younger than his age. He was very lucky that he had an adopter straight out, and being able to talk with them. But this entire group was able to help her with the experiences as this developed, from, what to expect after surgery and how long after can he have his wheelchair, and, tips and tricks of getting him used to walking in totally different motions, and, being able to have a resource as they're going through this in real time that I hoped I had. And it was a really beautiful moment to be able to do that. And that dog is thriving now. Like, they're having to work on training to like reel him back because he's just like, nope, I'm good. Like, I don't need any help.
Some of the things and some of the things you wouldn't necessarily think about if you didn't have a bipedal dog is something like just going to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
How can we help them go to the bathroom?
Surprising, because that's a major question I always get asked.
Right? Yeah.
Like, how does she use the restroom? And it's not really any different than any other dog, like any other female dog. She just it's the same, like squatting.
Hovers and goes.
So, but it is things, and being able to educate people on that they aren't as different as we think. And, we can make things that can help them adapt to doing anything another dog does. Like, Rue knows how to swim. So she wears one of the little inflatable collars around her neck.
Is it a heads up water collar?
I was just going to say, it's heads up pets. Yes, Lynn and Kelly.
We don't have one of those officially yet. I think we're going to get one this summer. I was kind of on the fence of
They're
debating.
one of our sponsors. We love them.
Yes. Well, I was figuring out if she actually liked swimming, but I think she's decided that she likes it enough, and it's enough that it's good for her to be able to do. So
it's a good exercise.
So we're going to be getting one of those and a life jacket. And so she can still propel herself forward, and she'll do anything for a treat. And I joked with one of my friends, she teaches dock diving. I said, we're going to teach her how to dock dive, right?
Oh my gosh. That would be awesome.
And I don't know if she loves water that much,
right.
But and there are some dogs that really enjoy it, and you just adapt. You do have to get a little creative and figure out different solutions. When she was younger and was doing more of kind of a downward bunny run, she got it's called a hygroma, and it's like a little cyst on one of her little nubs. It's very common on like elbows of dogs that have been laying too much on hard flooring. And so we had to think of ways to kind of protect that. And the way that we did was a male belly band. And so we just got an extra large size, and it kind of wraps around her chest and a little cross shape on the back, and it would give that little extra padding. So, you adapt. You have to get very creative with, special needs animals, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And she surprises me every day of what she can do. They just have to do it a little different.
Torie, as we're wrapping up here, I just want to mention the Mutt Militia. We talked about Marley's Movers, and I think that in the first year that program was developed, over 1,000 dogs were moved around the country. But the Mutt Militia is this whole network of support. Can you describe the Mutt Militia? And I want to mention absolutely that Marley's Mutts is a 501c3 nonprofit. So I think many times we think, these organizations want money, right? Mm-hmm. Donations. But that's true. We all know that's true to survive, but there's so many other things you can do. So please share what the Mutt Militia does for Marley's Mutts.
So our Mutt Militia is truly our supporters. We have people that will comment on and share every single post we post, and even everything with the algorithm these days that goes so far. And being able to, like you said, continually donate, which is awesome, but being able to just support, and the kind words goes so far for us. The animal rescue world is hard. And when you see those words of kindness of thank you for what you do, and thank you for supporting these dogs, that means the world to us. And you have people that are truly lifting us up and lifting these dogs up, and sharing the posts to be able to find an adopter, and having to consistently coming to volunteer, or it's really truly anyone that has supported us in one way or another. And we have been so lucky that we have incredibly devoted followers, and it's really formed a community to be able to see people that really support us, which is such a key part of rescue.
And that community can be around the world, with technology today, using your phones, using your computers. So again, it can be monetary, it can be volunteering labor, but it can be something as simple as, like you said, sharing posts and making a call and that sort of thing. And early on, Torie, you mentioned that this issue of pet overpopulation and euthanasia is a community problem. And so it has to be a community solution, so the quote, it takes a village comes to mind. We all can do our part. As small as it may seem, it can have a huge impact. And you also have corporate partners. We mentioned Walk and Wheels. I saw Best Friends on there that Kathy and I have both volunteered there in the past. I think you have over 28 corporate partners, and you can always use more. So anybody out there that's listening that wants to support, on a corporate level, if you have a company that does this kind of program, that would be awesome.
Well, and even monthly donations, even just a $5 reoccurring monthly donation
adds up
so far. And being able to have that consistent money come in, it doesn't have to be this large amount. Being able to have the price of a coffee, I mean, it really truly makes a difference to be able to keep the lights on and be able to support the dogs, because it's expensive. Everything is on the rise of cost. And so even if you're having the same amount of money coming in, it gets stretched further and further, especially when you get like these really big medical cases. And, we've had amazing followers that have been able to help and support and contribute to that. But everything is just so much more expensive, which makes it so much harder to support those at-risk dogs in need. So being able to just do a $5 monthly recurring donation to be able to have that predictable money coming in is incredibly valuable.
Torie, where can our audience find you? Where can they find Marley's Mutts and how to donate?
Pretty much everywhere. We are on Facebook at Marley's Mutts Dog Rescue. We are on Instagram at Marley's Mutts. And then we also have our website, which is marleysmutts.org, where you can also learn all about our different programs, all of our adoptable dogs. But on all of our social medias, you're able to also see videos of those dogs being pulled and specific donation links, and being able to see more of those details on like a day-to-day basis. But yeah, you can search Marley's Mutts for any of those. We have had a couple imposters, so I would just make sure that we have our little blue check mark.
Yep.
A good reminder for anybody donating to any organization, right?
So always making sure that you're donating to the rescue, or, even just going to their website if you're unsure if that's the actual rescue's page. Going to their website is always a good option to be able to make sure you're watching. And I know they also have PayPal, we have Venmo.
There are many,
There's many ways.
many options.
For a minute.
There are many ways you can give. Yeah. Torie, thank you so much for talking to us today. Marley's Mutts and the Miracle Mutts program just exemplifies the incredible potential of the human-animal bond, and your efforts. They're not only saving the lives of dogs, but also transforming the lives of countless individuals. So we thank you for that.
It's an absolute privilege to be able to have a job that I love and get to help people every day. It's an awesome organization, and I really hope that we can continue this for many, many, many years and be able to help outreach to more people and more dogs, and hopefully, one of those days we'll have a 0% euthanasia rate.
Hear, hear. Thanks, Torie. And ladies, if you don't mind, to sign off, I would love to read the Mutt Militia Creed, which I think sums up all of our commitments to dogs and animals throughout. The Mutt Militia Creed reads, I hereby commit myself to battle for humankind's best friend, to honor, defend, and protect the sacred bond between humans and dogs, to argue and advocate on their behalf, to bring to bear my skills to see the mission through, to promote rescue wherever possible because the next rescue dog may rescue me or someone I love, to persevere despite the wounds to my heart because the human canine bond is the essence of unconditional love. Our dogs possess divinity, which means we may not lay down our swords until the needless killing stops.
Perfect. Once again, Torie, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your commitment to these little souls.
Keep fighting the good fight, Torie.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having us and being able to bring an awareness to Marley's Mutts and be able to, outreach to people that maybe haven't heard about us.
Happy to have you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show.
Follow us on social media at Petability Podcast.
And please check out our affiliates and sponsors.
Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
Thank you and tune in next time.